Welcome to the Deep Dive. We cut through the noise, try to bring you the most potent insights from the sources you choose.
Glad to be diving in.
Yeah, today we're looking at excerpts from Mastering Workplace Dynamics, From Player to the Player. You've given us this, fascinating blueprint for understanding power, influence, how to advance really in any professional setting.
It's quite a provocative take, I think.
It really is. So our mission today is pretty clear. Unpack these ideas, figure out the difference between just being a player and becoming, the player.
That capital T makes all the difference.
Exactly. And explore those subtle, maybe hidden pathways to impact and leadership.
Yeah, how to spot those cracks the source talks about.
Right, and use subcultures to kind of carve your own path instead of getting stuck on that traditional ladder everyone talks about.
Which the source argues doesn't really work anyway.
Okay, let's get into it. This core distinction first. Player versus the player.
Right. So the source starts right there. It's foundational. It's not just about ticking boxes or achieving goals. It's about the kind of impact you have, the loyalty you command.
Okay, so more than just competence. How does the source define the regular player then? The lowercase p version.
Think about college graduation. That's the analogy they use. A player completes all the requirements, gets the degree, maybe even top of the class, right? Seen as having potential.
Done everything asked of them.
Exactly. Done what's expected. Got the skills, the qualifications. But here's the key bit. They haven't necessarily deeply influenced others or really cultivated followership.
Right.
They haven't, and this is the phrase the source uses, organized a cult.
Wow. Okay, organized a cult.
Yeah.
That's intense. It suggests something way beyond just being a good manager.
It does. It points to that deep, maybe almost irrational loyalty that makes people go way above and beyond for you. That's the hallmark of the player.
So if that's the standard for just a player, what defines the player? The one who has that cult, that incredible influence.
Well, the player operates on a totally different level. The source uses a very powerful, maybe controversial example, El Chapo.
Okay, yeah, definitely controversial.
Absolutely. But the source isn't condoning his actions. It's asking us to look at the mechanisms of his influence. How could he command such loyalty?
Right.
People risked everything, digging that incredible tunnel, wiring it, getting a bike ready, all under the radar. That wasn't just, a spur-of-the-moment thing.
No, that took planning, resources.
And intense loyalty. Loyalists at every single level. So the insight is that the player capital T cultivates this really deep, non-transactional loyalty. They become almost indispensable. They can execute these huge, complex, long-term plans through other people.
They're kind of mind-blowing, the scale of that loyalty. But, okay, El Chapo is an extreme case. How does this translate, ethically and practically to the workplace, the boardroom? You're not organizing tunnel escapes there.
Well, hopefully not. But the source makes a direct link. Think about boardrooms. They're full of players, smart, strategic people playing high-stakes chess for the company's profit.
Sure.
But the chief executive, the one in the top seat, almost always the player.
Oh.
They stay there until they're forced out, and it's always a fight. Or if they do retire, they often install a protege, someone to carry on their legacy.
So they remain the player even after they've left the building, in a way.
Exactly. It's about that enduring influence, that strategic succession planning, not just holding a title temporarily.
That makes a lot of sense. It's about legacy, not just the job description.
Yeah.
Okay, so we get the difference. Now, the big question, how do you become the player? And this is where the source brings in this idea of the crack.
Right, the crack. It's this hidden opportunity, a path that isn't the standard career ladder.
The non-obvious route.
Precisely. The source uses this imagery. Imagine the CEO looking out their window at the parking lot. Your goal, if you aspire to be the player, is to get noticed, to be marked as a, quote, specimen for closer observation.
Okay.
By exuding what the source calls a strange fragrance.
Strange fragrance, like literally.
No, not literally. It means this unique mix of competence, but also something subtly unconventional, something that makes you stand out, makes them think, that person's different, but without, genuinely ruffling feathers too much.
So noticeable, intriguing, but not immediately threatening.
Exactly. It's about understanding that CEO's perspective, maybe parking your car strategically where it's seen, appearing routine on the surface, but subtly disrupting things underneath. Carefully managed visibility.
A strange fragrance that doesn't ruffle feathers. It sounds like a really tricky balance. So how do you actually cultivate that kind of influence to move through this crack?
Well, to really get that positive attention, others need to see you as both a disruptor and astute. Clever. Your managers, your superiors, they start feeling proud of you. They talk you up to the directors. And the source says promotions come when you understand that, quote, today you are a product of either what you have done or what someone has done to you.
That implies intention.
Absolutely. It implies a deliberate, strategic, well, the source calls it manipulation of the situation over years. It's not luck. Right. It's engineered recognition.
Manipulation of the situation. That really drives home the intentionality, doesn't it? It's not just hard work and hoping, which kind of explains why the source is so down on the traditional career ladder.
Yeah, it really questions why we stick to that ladder idea. The source is pretty blunt. It calls the ladder known and congested, a deceptive symbol that never works, not these days anyway.
Strong words.
Very. It often rewards just sticking around, not necessarily innovation. It's linear, it doesn't reflect how value is created now, and climbing it can just lead to burnout.
So what's the alternative they suggest?
Instead, plan your disruption years. Moves that are innovative, but not like totally random or spontaneous, thought-out disruption.
Planned disruption, okay.
And they even mention things like age limits for getting into, say, the director's suite, which just reinforces why you need to plan these strategic, non-ladder moves early on.
Right. You can't just wait your turn on the ladder if there's an age cutoff. The author actually gives a great personal example of finding and using this crack, don't they?
They do. As a young dental intern, saw two paths in government service. Path 1. Safe job, slow climb, based purely on years served.
The ladder.
Pretty much. Path 2, specialist training. Now, this was seen by others as like skipping when I should be crawling.
Run and jump the queue.
Exactly. But this specialist route, it promised to leapfrog non-specialist colleagues by 6 years in just 4 years of training. Plus, it made them a preferred candidate for management roles, bypassing quotas that kept others waiting for decades.
Wow, so that was the crack.
Clearly. It was disruptive, innovative, it generated respect, but also, some suspicion. But it massively accelerated their career. Even opened doors outside public service, like becoming a professor.
Yep.
Completely bypassed that slow, congested ladder.
That's a brilliant example of seeing an alternative path.
Yeah.
But it's not just about spotting the crack, is it? You need to understand the social stuff, the underlying dynamics to actually navigate it.
Absolutely. It's not just the official org chart or the business culture. The source stresses that every organization has these unspoken commitments, pride, honor, things beyond the job description, the unseen social fabric.
Like what?
Well, take their example of a cashier. She's like a straightforward role, right? But she has a social life. Maybe she's related to a senior manager.
Okay.
Smart colleagues, they befriend her. She says good things about them to the boss. Suddenly, there's this little informal cluster of influence around the cashier. It's potent.
Yeah, we've all seen that, haven't we? Those informal networks that can be surprisingly powerful. The org chart doesn't show everything. There's another story in there about a new supervisor.
Yes, the training department supervisor. Classic situation. No classroom experience, felt insecure, leading teachers who were more qualified, academically speaking.
Awkward.
Very. So to assert himself, he kind of threw his weight around. How? By using his old friends, longer-serving employees, as his spies to check for resistance from his team.
Using friends as spies? That sounds problematic.
It revealed his lack of confidence, didn't it? And it showed he'd basically been smuggled into the new position by these friends during a restructure. It exposed the subculture he relied on. He was trying to act like the player, but without the genuine influence.
And these subcultures, they pop up in subtle ways, like the story about the colleague organizing 2 birthdays. That really highlights the hidden loyalties.
It's a perfect illustration. One birthday party, big success, lots of enthusiasm. The second one for someone else, suddenly hard to organize. People who were assumed loyalists backed out.
Why?
It revealed these different subcultures. Different groups, different loyalties, different motivations. Understanding that tells you which social events actually matter politically and which ones you can probably skip. It's about reading the social currents.
So it's not just who you know, but why they stick together. And this leads to that idea of unofficial influence, right? Like the power of an executive secretary.
Exactly. An executive secretary can sometimes frustrate a director with just, quote, a wrong word to the boss. Nothing written down, nothing official.
But it changes things.
It produces results. So identifying these subgroups, understanding their culture, figuring out how they influence the real power structures, that's crucial if you want to build your case, advance your own agenda over the long haul.
So you have to decide, do I try and join an existing club or do I need to form my own? It's about planning your management approach, not just ticking off tasks.
Precisely. It's strategic social navigation.
Which brings us to navigating these subtleties. Becoming the player means picking up on tiny cues, using group dynamics. The author's UK experience sounds like a masterclass in this.
It really is. He starts wearing bow ties in the UK, just like them, apparently.
Yep.
Then discovers there's this informal bow tie competition among the lecturers every Friday, voted on discreetly by the ladies.
Seriously, a bow tie competition.
Yep. And joining this sort of unofficial club just by wearing a bow tie led to invitations to other clubs where alcohol matters get discussed, which it turned out directly impacted workplace politics.
Wow, and wasn't there something about cars too?
Even subtler, these guys in the bow tie group, they all drove red cars. And they parked them together on Fridays, strategically.
Red cars and bow ties, so these weren't just random choices, they were signals, like a secret handshake.
Exactly. External symbols hinting at these really intense personal commitments and unspoken allegiance, totally invisible if you weren't keyed in, and there was a definite agenda behind it all.
What was the agenda?
The big topic in this group was drumming up political support for one of them to become head of department.
The real politics.
Right. And the author realized his invitation, his value to this inner circle was potentially about his ability to, engineer political support or reduce resistance from the student community.
So they saw him as potentially useful. How did he handle that?
Cleverly. He abstained from the alcohol, which allowed him to kind of withdraw from the really active plotting, you might say.
Right.
But he kept the connection through the bow ties, maintained the link without fully committing to their whole agenda, ensuring he wouldn't betray them either.
That is subtle. Staying connected, perceived as part of the group, but maintaining some distance. Knowing when to engage, when to step back.
It really shows the value of subtlety. Just showing you're attracted to or identify with a group's values can get you invited into their inner workings, and that opens doors, connections that totally bypass the career ladder.
Which, as the source keeps saying, never gets to the top anyway.
Right. The real paths to power are often unofficial, relational, subtle.
So the player doesn't just understand these groups. They strategically invest in them. The source mentions strategic loyalty and investment, with some pretty strong examples.
It does get quite provocative there. It talks about assessing the capabilities of these subcultures, maybe even forcing mergers as a goodwill act today in preparation for payback years later. Loyalty is treated as a serious currency.
And the examples?
Well, it gives this one. If you, say, launder clothes for a superior, or maybe buy a used car so their kid can stay in school, make sure you have a way to remind them about it later, at the appropriate time.
Wow, that's calculated.
The source calls it deliberate politics for winners, an investment that is optimally profitable in the pursuit of the golden crown.
Okay, deliberate politics for winners. That's a bold phrase. Some listeners might find that level of calculation a bit. How does that square with building, trust? Isn't trust fundamental?
That's a fair point. I don't think the source is saying don't build trust or be unethical. It's more about acknowledging the maybe uncomfortable reality of how influence actually works in many human systems.
A pragmatic view.
Right. It suggests the player understands that while trust is vital, loyalty can also be a strategic asset, and it can be cultivated in different ways, sometimes through genuine connection, sometimes maybe more transactionally, but always with an eye on the long game. It's about being aware of the unspoken debts and credits that often exist.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. We've gone from understanding the difference between being just a player and the player to spotting those cracks, the non-traditional path.
Bypassing that congested ladder.
Exactly. And seeing how crucial it is to understand subcultures, hidden loyalties, subtle cues, all to unlock influence and advancement.
Yeah, the stories, El Chapo's escape, the dental intern, the bow ties and red cars, they all point to this same idea. Real influence often operates beneath the official surface. It's not always what's written down.
Absolutely. So, as we wrap up, maybe the question for you listening is, what cracks that you be overlooking in your own environment?
Yeah. What subtle signals are flying around you right now? And how could really understanding them, help you move from just playing the game to maybe becoming the player in your own field?